Dear Past Me, for the next few episodes, I want to spend some time teaching you some of the tips that I learned for succeeding in school. And the first one I want to talk to you about is note-taking. So the very first tip for note-taking is put down any distractions. Whether you're in school or at home, a phone or an iPad or anything like that is not going to help you with note-taking. So take that and put it down. Better yet, put it on airplane mode first so that you won't be distracted with any alerts. Note-taking can be so boring, so one of my favorite tips is to take a notebook that has a little fun to it. Whether you buy one like this, where it has all these different little triangles and glitter on it, or just buy a plain black notebook and add some washi tape. There are so many ways to customize your notebook, and trust me, when it looks pretty, you'll be way more tempted to open it. The next step is picking your writing utensil. Like I said before, for me at least, note-taking can be so boring. So what I like to do is write in color. So I have all these different pen colors. Now, when you buy a big pack of pens, there are a lot of colors that aren't very useful. Like, I've gotten yellows and these kind of weird bright oranges, but like, even this one's dark enough, and so this is kind of the pile of pens that I like to use. We have like a pink, a red, an orange that actually comes out pretty dark. This blue that is pretty good, but I use this more as like a highlighting or underlining color because it's kind of hard to read sometimes. I use this dark green and this navy blue. And for me, this just makes writing so much more entertaining to have a little color, and especially sometimes I'll even match it to the color of my notebooks. And I just think that's really helpful, and it's also proven. I've seen different studies about color in memory, so you never know, could even help you remember some of the things you write. That brings me right to the next step in taking notes, is grabbing a highlighter. Now, no matter what color it is, just make sure it kind of goes well with whatever pen color, because if you use like an orange or even a red, it kind of will run into the yellow a little bit. So I would recommend getting a different color based on whatever pen color you use, or you can also just use a different pen color to underline. But basically, the reason for this is to be able to highlight some of the important information so that later on when you're kind of going through all of the notes you took, because sometimes it can be pages and pages and pages of notes, and you don't want to have to waste the time trying to figure out where everything is. So by being able to highlight or underline things, it really helps you stay in focus in what you need to know. So, as we all know, no one is perfect. So a whiteout tape is perfect if you're going to be using pen, because if you start messing up and then like scribbling everything out or crossing it out, it becomes super messy and hard to read. And so this little tape is perfect. So the last item on my list of suggested materials would be sticky notes. They're really simple, and it's perfect if you have a lot of pages of notes again and you just kind of want to jot down an idea, or you have a question about something. They're perfect to just stick right in there, and then you'll never forget. So now that you have all of your materials, you are ready to start taking your notes. First things first, I would never recommend starting on a page that you already had things written on. Even if you can fit it in a tiny little space at the bottom, it's not worth it. You'll just get completely confused and it's a mess. Now, once you've flipped to a clean sheet of paper, start by writing the title and the date of the section that you're working on. That way, if you ever have to go back, or if a teacher asks a question on a specific section, you know exactly where to find the information. Now, the two types of notes that I've encountered have been the ones that the teacher writes on the board and the ones that you have to take at home with a book. Now, let's start with the book. For the book, the most important thing to do is make sure that every time that a word is boldface or underlined or colored different color, however your book does it, you write that term down and completely understand what it means. Now, if you don't have a clear definition, look in the back of the book. In the glossary, there are usually a list of words that are highlighted, boldface, underlined, however the book does it, and with a clear definition. And that way you have everything you need. When you write the term in your notes, make sure you highlight, underline, boldface, whatever you want to do with it, to make sure that it really stands out so that you know that's an important word. Now, if something is really important, I like to put a big box around it with a bright colored pen. That way I know exactly what it means and that it stands out to me right when I open my notes. Make sure to copy and label any diagrams in the book. They are super helpful in understanding concepts. If there's anything you don't understand, put a star or a question mark next to it. That way you'll remember next time you see your teacher to ask him. Now, on the other hand, if you're in class taking notes where the teacher writes it up on a board or in a PowerPoint, make sure to write down everything on the slides, but not everything they say. The things that they have written are typically the most important. And if they say it more than once, make sure to indicate that, because that means it's even more important, because they really want you to understand it, so they keep repeating it. Now, everyone takes notes a little bit differently, but here are two styles that I've learned that I think are very helpful, and they kind of both range depending on your personality type. So if you're really visual and need to see all of the terms on one side, there's one for you, but also if you kind of want to save space and get it all in there, there's another way for you. Now, for those of you who need to see all the terms written out on one side and need a little more structure and organization, take a pen and draw a line about 2 inches to the right of the margin, all the way down. Now, in that little column that you made between the margin and your dark line, you're going to write all the important terms. And on the other side of that line, that's where you're kind of going to put all of the information, whether it's definitions or just added information. But the way this kind of works is it really sets you up so that later on when you're looking for a specific word, you know right where to look. It's just along that left column. And I think that's really helpful for people that kind of struggle with organization or just need to see it out a little bit better. So that's the style that I liked more in middle school, but now that I'm getting into the high school and college area, I think that takes a little bit more time that I don't exactly have anymore, so this style of note-taking is a little more free. And so what I do is just any important term, I kind of make this little squiggly underline to it, and that just kind of tells me it's an important word, and then I put the definition next to it, and then I always skip 2 lines, and it's a little bit of a waste of paper, but I think it just keeps it a little more organized, yet it's a little more like the way we write in general everyday life, and so I'm more comfortable with this way now. But either way, totally works and is a totally great organizational strategy. Now, typically when you take notes, you do end up going over them in some way. So what I like to do is take my highlighter and go through, and anything that they mention, I highlight right away, because then I know that that was the important information that they wanted me to know. This is especially important if you do take notes on your own in a book or something, because what you think is important may not be exactly what your teacher had in mind. Now, if we have a quiz and I know that in a couple weeks there's going to be a test coming up, once we get that quiz back, I'll go through and take a light pen and underline, circle, whatever I kind of want to do to any word or idea that was used on the homework or quiz or whatever we did in preparation for the test, because usually that is the exact same information that will appear on the test, and that's the most important. And so this just kind of keeps it fresh in my mind, exactly what they wanted me to know. But sometimes with all this highlighting and underlining, it can get super messy. So something else I like to do is, once I have all the information that I need, know exactly all of the questions and what I need to know, I like to go back and type it up on a computer, and that way it's only the important information. There's no way you can't read it. It's super organized, just the way I like it, and that's really helpful for a test for me. Now, something that always frustrated me was when teachers in the middle of notes would give you a handout that had to do with the notes, but it wouldn't fit in your notebook, and it was separate, but somehow you had to keep it all together. So another thing that I like to do is take either paper clips or a stapler and just kind of attach it right to the notes, and that way it's right in order, right there perfectly, because I tend to use notebooks more than like loose leaf paper in a binder, which that totally works too, and in which case you could just stick that paper right in. But if you're using a notebook, I think stapling it or paper clipping it to the page that it kind of goes with can be really helpful and a quick way to find that too. So basically, I just threw a ton of information at you, and the truth is, you are probably not going to remember it all. So real quick, here are the top 3 things to take from this video. First off, be completely distraction-free. I know it's hard to put down your phone for a few minutes, but trust me, you'll get a lot more out of it if you do. Number 2, keep track of important information, whether you use a highlighter or a pen, whatever you want to use, just make sure that you know exactly what you need to know. And the third one, I didn't mention it till right now because I wanted to make sure that it was very clear and that it didn't get anywhere near the mess of kind of all the other stuff I said. And so my number 1 tip, if we're going in order kind of like that, I know it was 3, but the number 1 most important thing to take away from this video is, if you can't read your notes, they're not useful. So make sure that you at least write clearly enough that you can still read it, because I know, like, out of everything you're going to write in your life, notes are probably definitely the messiest. I know I don't take my time to make sure it's all perfectly on the line and all that, because you kind of got to move pretty quickly to keep up with the class, and you don't want to be spending like 3 hours taking notes. But make sure that you can read it, because there will be no point in having taking notes if you get home and you have no idea what they say. So please, 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 whatever you do, just make sure that you can read your own handwriting. And that is all for this edition, so get writing. Sincerely, your future self. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching the very first episode of my new mini-series called Get Schooled. So basically what it's going to be about is all different success tips for students, and basically the things I've kind of learned along the way on how to improve my grades, how to take better notes as in this example, and just all sort of things like really pertaining to academics. So if you have any ideas or requests, please leave them in the comments down below, and I'll see you in my next video.